Yo, welcome back. So you probably clicked this thumbnail because you recently took the ARE and you probably failed the exam, and now you're wondering, what now? Should I study for a retake on the exam, or should I go to a new exam and prepare for it? Well, find out the answer to your question on this week's episode of ARE Minority Connect. All right, welcome to this week's episode of ARE Minority Connect. What now? So this question comes up a lot. I see it in the Facebook groups. I see it on NCARB. People say, hey, I just failed an exam and now I don't know if I should retake this exam or if I should go to the next exam and prepare for something new. Well, when I was going through the process, I started out with taking an exam, and if I failed it, I was going to the next exam. And so I started out with PPD, I didn't pass it, then I went to PDD, didn't pass it, and went to PA, and then I didn't pass it. And so after doing that for a while, I said, okay, that strategy is actually not working for me, taking an exam and moving to a new one. And so I said to myself, the next exam that I take, if I pass or fail it, I'm going to stay on that exam and study for a retake. And so as a result, I took PCM and I actually failed it, but I said, okay, I'm gonna stay on this exam. And one of the thoughts and theories that I had that backed me up on this was that I've already studied the material. I've spent the time, I spent the effort studying this material. And so I was still familiar with it. I wouldn't be learning something new. A lot of times, people will say, well, certain exams, you can group them together and they're similar. And that is true to some extent, but each division of the exam have different types of questions and styles of questions that you have to get comfortable and familiar with. So as a result, I took PCM and I didn't pass it, but then I retook it and then I passed it. So now what I want to do is I want to show you some data that actually comes from NCARB that is actually going to support and clarify what actually happened to me when I first started taking the exam. All of this data is produced by NCARB and is found on their website. So if you want to see more of this content, please go to NCARB and look for this data. So this first chart is basically just the pass rates by different racial demographics. And you might ask yourself, well, how is this going to help me? Well, in my case, as an African American, I can look at this chart and I can see that PA, PPD, and PDD are all three exams that African Americans really perform bad in. And so those are exams that I would use this chart and say, okay, those I may need to take a little bit more time to prepare for. I may need to, do a little more studying, or I may need to leave them until the end of my testing process. Again, because I started out trying to take them first. I would like to point out one test in particular, which is PA, which was the exam that for me was the hardest. It actually has the highest percentage differential between those who identify as whites and those who identify as African Americans. It's about 18%. That's the difference between those who are white who passed the exam versus those who are African Americans who passed the exam. So this next chart I want to show you, this really will help you to define whether you should retake an exam or not. And this also is going to, again, show you what happened to me. So again, I started out with PPD, PDD, and PA. Well, look at the results of those, the percentage of the people who passed the exam, passed at their first attempt versus their retake. And as you can see, the retake percentages on all three of those exams are somewhere in the 40s, right? So that means that people who are actually taking those exams and retaking them are actually not passing them, actually doing a retake. So you're highly likely to, for instance, take PA. If you don't pass it to a first attempt, you actually may fail it on your retake because it's so low on those. More people are actually failing the retake than they are their first attempt. Now look at PCM, PJM, and CE. PCM, for instance, you're highly likely to retake that exam and actually pass it. The pass rates for those who passed it on their first time and the ones who retake it are fairly similar. As you can see, they're 54 and 52%. So it's highly likely. And then when you look at PJM and CE, those who retake the exam, they're all above 50% threshold of those who pass the exam, meaning that those who actually retook the exam more than likely passed it on their next time attempt taking the exam. So, should you retake a test or go to a new exam? I want to leave you with these tips here. First one is trust. Trust yourself to make the best decision for you. Again, you are the one that is taking the exams. You are the one that is preparing for these exams, and you know yourself better than anyone on any blog, on any Facebook, or any YouTube. So trust yourself. Number two, study. Study your scoring reports. If you've recently, let's say you've taken 2 exams, you failed both of them, and you look at your scoring reports and you're a lot closer to passing this exam than you were this one, well, I would think you would want to study, retake, this exam that you're a lot closer to passing. Maybe there's a situation where you've got your scoring report back and you do see that maybe in all the content areas you perform below the recommended ranges. So in that case, that may be an exam that maybe you say, okay, I need a lot more time on that one. I want to go to a new exam. That one's giving me a lot more trouble. Or maybe you have an exam that you get your scoring report and maybe it was one section or maybe two content areas that you struggled in. You could, study those content areas and be prepared for a retake. And lastly, I say, look at the data. The data that I just showed you is provided on NCARB's website. There are a lot more data and a lot more charts that you can go through. Looking at the different demographics, it lines up with how people perform on the exams. So what now? I want to leave you with this. Again, trust yourself to make the best decision for you. No one else can tell you what is best for you to do when you're determining whether you should retake an exam or if you should go to a new section. That's all I have this week, you guys. Thank you for tuning in to ARE Minority Connect. I'll see you in the next episode. Peace.